and then Guru Ram Rao Patro in the lineage of early 20th century Maestro Ashtavadhani Acharya Tarini Charan Patra. As an archivist, he has documented several endangered art forms, well known for his lectures and articles on music and culture. His most recent publication, Odissi Sangeeti Bharidi, co-authored with Ramarao Patro, is a voluminous book containing the text of a musical treatise and notations compiled from the hitherto unpublished manuscripts of Tarini Charan Patra and has been widely appreciated by musicians and scholars alike. Now he is here with us, and this is a great opportunity for all of us to learn what is Sangeeta Vadhana and what his experiences are, which are most valuable to us. And for this session, I request the Director of Human Sciences from Rishihood University, Professor Sampadananda Mishraji, to come and grace us as a chairperson for this session. Therefore, I request Pradeep Patnaik ji to continue the session. Welcome, sir. A very warm welcome from Avadhana Sangaama 2 and on behalf of all of us, on behalf of the university.
Namaste. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Then I will just present my slides and begin. I hope this is visible. Yes. There's no unnecessary noise or anything, I hope.
Yes, sir, it's all right.
You can hear the Tanpura, I think.
Yeah. The volume can be increased a little bit.
Okay. It's fine now?
Yeah, fine.
Namaste. And my humble pranams to all the gurus present here in the audience. I speak about this tradition motivated by Sampadananda sir, who initially caught the name of my guru's guru in one of my Facebook posts, which mentioned my guru's guru, as you can see on the slide here, was called Ashtavadhani Acharya Tarini Charanapatra. So he was an Ashtavadhani, and this caught the notice of Sampadananda sir, who further encouraged me to dive into and find out details about this form. Of course, we knew a certain things from our lineage, but even we had not investigated it to such depth to be able to talk about it as part of the overall Avadhana tradition in India. I was not aware that the Avadhana tradition in Odisha has not been much discussed upon, which again Sampadananda sir pointed out. Therefore, this began a cycle of questions and surveys in the villages and asking around elderly disciples of Acharya Tarini Charan Patra, some of whom are even 93, 95 as of now. And whatever material could be gathered from early sources, from newspapers, reports, journals, and of course in the living tradition we have certain exercises that are available which help us to know the level of mastery that was required over music in the early period. That has become not as intensive now. So therefore, a series of exercises that have been prescribed by Ashtavadhani Acharya Tarini Charanapatra himself, along with whatever other material that we could gather from his students, from his direct disciples, especially the elderly disciples who were in contact with him before the Avadhana, before he got this title of Ashtavadhana. That is what we will be talking about today. And whatever material could be found has been gathered into this presentation, which contains more of demonstrative material, less of visual material. So before beginning, I will generally talk about the Avadhana tradition of Odisha. This is a photograph of Acharya Tarini Charanapatra. He lived from 1893 to 1979. My guru, my direct guru is Pandit Ramarao Patra, who is the leading disciple of Sri Tarini Charanapatra, and therefore he has received some of the practices that I was talking about before. A short mention about the Avadhana tradition as it is practiced in Odisha. Avadhana, the word is pronounced ba in the Odishan Sanskrit tradition. We will call it Avadhana. And in this Avadhana, the word carries certain connotations in the Odishan context. In Odisha, for example, Avadhana, of course, in regular Odia means attention. So, Chitta Avadhana Manima means pay attention, please, which is the language that was used in the courts. That is still used in the temples. For example, the Jagannatha temple will use Chitta Avadhana Manima, that is the word. Again, there is a family called the Matti Vamsa. The Matti Vamsa family, the clan, was known to specialize in being Avadhanas, in which the word Avadhana refers to teachers. So there were village level schools, universities, teaching institutes, which were called Chattasaris, which were meant for mostly primary to upper primary education, but the Avadhanas were learned enough to proceed beyond that if you were interested. So these Avadhana was a position. In this sense, it means the position of the chief teacher in a Chattasari or in a local educational institution. They would belong to the Matti Vamsa and they would specialize in certain disciplines, which was an interdisciplinary kind of education, which included Sahitya, Sangita, Ganita, and a little bit of Darshana Shastra, a little bit of Chanda Shastra, and various things like that, which will occur as we proceed with Sangita Avadhana. That is another sense of the word Avadhana. So these people were called Avadhanas. However, the word Avadhani was never used for them. The Avadhani word was only used when you qualified an examination called Avadhana. I'm speaking this purely from a local context, although this might seem very familiar in the pan-Indian context. I'm just highlighting what it means to a person in Odisha who would have been here some 200 years ago with little to no exposure about what the tradition would have looked like 1000 years away somewhere in Karnataka, for example. So in Odisha, the classification that they had, the minimum was considered Ashtavadhana. And of course, then it would Dasavadhana, Dwadasavadhana. The number of Shatavadhanis in Odisha is very little for reasons that I'll explain. The test of Avadhana did not consider only of simultaneous attention to multiple topics, but it was an exponential system of classification, which meant Ashtavadhana would be 8 into 8, 64. So there would be 8, Ashtavadhana would consider of 8 separate disciplines, each of which would have 8 separate subcategories. For example, out of these 8 Avadhanas, Sangit Avadhana was one. So Tarini Charana Patra qualified Ashtavadhana, the 8 disciplines of which included Chaturanga, Kavitva, Lekhana, Kanthagrahana, Ganita, Sangita, Juktikarana, Vyaktakhyana. So each of these would be referred to Chaturanga Avadhana, Kavitva Avadhana, Lekhana Avadhana, they would mention it like that. There were certain single Avadhanas as well, which I will mention later. There was, for example, there were single Sangita Avadhanis also. There were single Kabya Avadhanis also, which was available, but the highly prized Avadhanis were all Ashtavadhana and above. So Chaturanga, Kavitva, Lekhana, Kanthagrahana, Ganita, Sangita, Juktikarana, Vyaktakhyara. These 8 formed a traditional conventional set which was known as the default Ashtavadhana, which any Avadhani could be enrolled into and asked to be questioned on these disciplines. You could also choose other disciplines, for example, the Vedas, the Vedangas, the Upavedas, the Upanishads, and like that you had several classifications. Of the 8 Avadhanas that he qualified in order to be called Ashtavadhani, each of these subcategories would include intensive questioning spread over several days with up to 18 hours a day questioning without any breaks. So it was a kind of stress test that was done. Apart from this stress test, the simultaneous kind of attention, which means one question from Sangita, one question from Ganita, and then circle back, which is more of a memory exercise, that was also done. So in that sense, I can say that the Avadhana tradition in Odisha was kind of two-dimensional. It questioned not only simultaneous attention and ability to switch between categories in an instant, but it also tested the level of depth in each of the traditions. For example, in order to qualify Avadhana in Vyakarana in Odisha, you were supposed to know all the 9 Vyakaranas. You could not qualify based on a single one. So you are supposed to know the Nava Vyakarana. And of that, you could specialize in one. But if there was a cryptic question asked from one of the less known Vyakaranas, you were supposed to be able to answer as a Avadhani in the field of Vyakarana. Similarly, for Samgita Avadhana, you were supposed to be having complete mastery not just over vocal music but also percussive music and instrumental music, and within that, various kinds of instruments such as stringed instrument, wind instrument, and again percussive instrument, then Ghanavadya, which is metallic instrument. You were supposed to know all that. You were supposed to know Sangeeta Shastra, which is the scholarly side of music. So you cannot just be a singer or an excellent vocalist, excellent practical demonstrator and qualify for Sangeeta Avadhana. To qualify, you need to know the Shastra Paksha as well. So which is why the number of Shatavadhanis is extremely low. Because each Avadhana, even a single Sangeeta Avadhana in Odisha is the equivalent of several Avadhanas as compared to other regional traditions. Which is why you will often have Ashtavadhani, a few Dashavadhanis, Dwadashavadhanis. I have heard of 22 Avadhanis in rare cases. For example, I'll tell you a few names. Kavi Samrat Upendra Bhanja, whose songs I will mention later, was well known as a poet and composer of Odissi music, which is the ritual classical music tradition of Odisha, centered around the temples, the matha, and the royal courts. It is known as Odissi music or Odissi Sangeeta, literally the adjective Odissi meaning of Odisha. Sangeeta Avadhana that we are talking of is in the context of Odissi classical music. So we are not talking beyond that. Acharya Tarini Chanapatra was one of the leading gurus and maestros of Odissi classical music in the 20th century, early 20th century. He was considered as the leading representative of Odissi music from the southern parts of Odisha, which consists of around 10 districts, you can say, that entire region. From the region from, say, Banapur, which is in the Khalikot Gadajata, from where he, the Khalikot princely state, from where he received the title of Ashtavadhani, up until the Srikakulam. Srikakulam was very much a part of Odisha under the Pala Kemundi rulers, because it is part of ancient Kalinga, and even now places like Kalinga, Patna are still now in Andhra Pradesh, but in this period of time when he was qualifying this examination, early 1930s, it was very much a part of Odisha and under the Parala Kemundi kings. So that whole area until Simanchalam, in fact, because Simanchalam was the tutelary deity of the Eastern Ganga dynasty, constructed by Langula Narasimha, who was the same ruler who constructed Konark near Puri. I should mention a little bit about the life history of Acharya Tarini Charanapatra, which will make sense because that is the immediate tradition from where we are deriving from as the source for whatever I am saying. And other things are all via him. So Acharya Tarini Charanapatra was born in a family of weavers in 1893, well-to-do family belonging to northern part of Ganjam district, which you might have heard of. He is born in the Bhanjanagar, the Ghumusara area. In the Ghumusara area, he trains under the veteran guru Gaurahari Mahapatra belonging to the Ghumusara belt. Then he trains under Gayakaratna Vinayaka Panda from Dharakota, who is the Raja Sangeetagya of the Dharakot Royal Court. Then he trains under Guru Mohana Panda from Parala Kemundi, who was an expert in the Kirtana traditions. Then under Gayaka Siromani Apanna Panigrahi. All of these people are on record and well known across in ancient Odisha. So Gayaka Siromani Andha Apanna Panigrahi, who was again the Raja Sangeetagya of the Parala Kemundi Royal Court. So he derived his lineage from these four gurus. And then if we trace further, Gayaka Siromani Apanna Panigrahi's guru was Radha Govinda Rajaguru, who belonged to the Rajaguru family of the Paralakemundi royal court. Paralakemundi being one of the most influential princely states and one of the largest and most prestigious royal families belonging to the Eastern Ganga dynasty, which ruled that area for over some 1500 years. That dynasty, Rajaguru, Radha Govinda Rajaguru, was an expert in the Gandharva Vedas. That is where these people derived from. So Radha Govinda Rajaguru's tradition maintained the Shastraic tradition of Odissi music from the Shastrakaras themselves. So if we look into the Sangita Shastras or the treatises of the Odishan music tradition that are composed over, say, some 15th century to 20th century, we have several texts available, not counting Jayadeva's Gita Govinda, which is counted equivalent to a Shastra, and Bharata's Natya Shastra and Sangita Ratnakara, which are of course pan-Indian texts like that, Dattilam, Kohalim. Apart from pan-Indian texts, if we talk of strictly Odishan text, we find there is a Gita Prakasha text written by Krishnadasa Badajena Mahapatra. Gita Prakasha, written around mid 16th century. Then we have Sangita Narayana, written by Kaviratna Purushottama Mishra, who was again the royal tutor of the king, the then king. This is around 1650. The king's name was Gajapati Sarvagya Jagannatha Narayana Deva. Sarvagya Jagannatha Narayana Deva and his guru Kaviratna Purushottama Mishra have jointly authored the text Sangita Narayana, which along with Gita Prakasha is considered one of the most fundamental texts. So it is often used to cited for definitions. Radha Govinda Rajaguru, whom we are talking about, Radha Govinda Rajaguru is 1890 to 1963. Radha Govinda Rajaguru specialized in the Sangita Narayana tradition because he was the Rajaguru of the same lineage. Therefore, he specialized in the Shastra, he would quote the Shastras and then he would present the practical tradition because he belonged to that elite learned lineage. And that comes to Gayaka Siromani Panigrahi, who is again one of the gurus of Tarini Chanapatra. Then again, we trace our lineage to another family, which is Hanumana Kavichandra Rayaguru, who was 1827 to 1891. We are entering early 19th century. He is again from the Dharakot tradition. I was speaking about Vinayaka Panda. Again, Hanuman Kavichandra Rayaguru is known to have be participated in tests of this, which are very akin to the Avadhana tradition. Although we are not aware of him having received any explicit title because of his Vaishnava affiliations. From him we get to his son Govinda Rayaguru, and from him to Vinayaka Panda, again Tarini Chanapatra. Again, if we trace back to another of the lineages, we will find direct links. Tarini Chanapatra did several kind of research things in the 1930s, 40s, and afterwards. And in that period, he began collecting old compositions, old techniques, and old pedagogical methods from the veteran elderly gurus of southern Odisha, all these places. The princely states of Kolikota, Chikiti, Surangi, Badakhemundi, Sanakhemundi, Tarala, Manjusa, Budharsingi, Jalantara, Paradakhemundi, that Gunupur, Rayagada, Navarampur, Jaipur area, and all that area he began collecting from the earlier, especially the courtly musicians. And in that collection, he gathered a lot of the material that we are going to present today. Many of the songs that I will give examples, for example, are collected in that area. During his research in Athagada Gumusari area, he met the direct grandson or son of Kavi Surya Baladev Ratha, another of the Avadhanis. He was one of the ancient Avadhanis of Odisha around 18th, 19th century, the transition period. Kavi Surya Baladev is one of the chief poet, composers, musicians of the Odisha music tradition. So he is one of the trinity whose songs that we sing. He is the composer of what is called the Champu, a unique genre of Odisha music tradition. And in from Kavi Surya's lineage also we derive some things that I'll mention. Then again, Mohana Panda and Radha Govinda Rajaguru, who I was mentioning, are again local people who have learned from the tradition, especially Mohana Panda, derives from the direct tradition of another of the trinity of poet composers, who is Kavi Kalahamsa Gopala Krishna Pattanayaka, who is again from Paradakhimundi. From Gopala Krishna's direct tradition, Mohana Panda derives. Again, Tarini Patra. So it is from these varied traditions that we are drawing from, that he had already come from by the 1940s, and he had taught my sir, who is Ramarao, Guru Ramarao Patra, the 1965-75, that period. He had already taught these things. And then after a further round of questioning from 2018 until 2023, we have added several more layers of details into this. So So that is the thing. Tarini Charan Patra was well known for his vocal mastery. He was equally well known for his research. He was also known for his scholasticism because he is one of the few in that generation who would quote from the Shastras one after the other. And for everything, he would use the Sangita Narayana as a reference point. He was also known as one of the first codifiers of the traditional pedagogical method and to bring it into institutional education so that certification and jobs and employment, all that could happen in a systematic method. He was known as a Beenakara. As you can see in this photo, the Veena tradition in Odisha was one of the specialized traditions that was equally valued, if not more valued, than the vocalist tradition because the Sangita Narayana mentions that if good singers have any doubt anywhere, Sadvainikais vicharja tatha anubhuyo. Ask good Vainikas so that they can clarify your doubts. So anybody has a doubt, they will consult the Vainikas because the Beenakara tradition is considered the specialist in the finer aspects. Shruti, Swara, Murcha, Grama, Gamaka, all that. Therefore, he was one of the last famous Beenakaras. My sir, Pandit Ramdev Patra, is also known as a Beenakara, mostly known as a Beenakara. So that is his various identities. He was also a poet and composer. He also wrote songs and composed, which is known as Bhagyakara, which is something I'll come to here. The Sangita Avadhana, as I was saying, it is an exponential classification. So Ashtavadhana, in that you'll have 8 categories, Ganita, Sangita, all that. Within Sangita, you have further 8 categories. Similarly, for the remaining 7, 8 into 8. Within Sangita Avadhana, these are 8 sub aspects of music which are thoroughly grilled. Which are Gita or Gano. Gano is the word they will prefer in Gangam. The Avadhana tradition in 20th and 19th century Odisha, we find mostly in southern Odisha because southern Odisha had a lot of small royal courts. But they needed the approval to grant the title, they needed the approval of the Gajapati ruler, who was considered the overall ruler of Odisha. So an agreement had to be, the final awardment would be from the Gajapati king in shape of some artifact from the Jagannatha temple. Even now, we have the tradition in Odisha. There is the Gita Govinda Khandua, which is offered to Lord Jagannatha and then it is brought down. The Khandua that has been offered that is tied to newer Sevayatas who are initiated into service. That is the method. So Angolagi Khandua, Sriyangolagi Khandua, and Sriyangolagi Khandua and Nirmalya. That would be ordered from Puri. Suppose the Kalikot Royal Court organizes Sangita Avadhana. There is a story behind that. Seeing Tarini Patra becomes famed in the 1930s because he sings Kirtana and all, and there are miraculous incidents where Jagannatha himself appears. And in Puri, there is a dream to somebody that Jagannatha is not there when the prasada is offered. Maybe is being offered. Pandit does not see Jagannatha in their palms. The custom in Puri is that after when the Naivedya is being offered, when the palms are joined, a reflection of the deity is seen in the palms. If that is seen, then it's considered the Naivedya has been accepted. If not, it is considered that something has been amiss. For example, a dog has entered the compound, or somebody has not maintained Shuchi while preparing the Naivedya. So the Puja Punda did not see Jagannatha in his palm, fell down and got a dream order that Tarini Patra is doing Kirtana in Boirani, which is a place. Go there and stop him. After that, I return. The Puja Panda goes all the way 300 kilometers, meets him, tells something, then Tarini Patra sings out. This results in a wave of fame and he becomes counted more as a saintly musician than just a musician. And somebody conveys this news to the royal court of Khalikota. The Khalikota Darbar, the king then was one of the leading, he was very proud of the Odishan traditions. He was a great patron of the music and literary traditions. Seeing that, he immediately called and said, I will award you something. Let us conduct the test of Avadhana. After so many years, I found somebody eligible. I've heard that this test used to be conducted. I want to do one test because the organization of an Avadhana is seen as seen as a greatest level of patronage to the arts, to the academic literary tradition. Therefore, kings want to organize because it's an expensive affair. It involves a lot of investment, and that creates an image of the great patron of the arts. The Kalikot king, by that later he would gain control over the Athagada royal court also, because that was sold off to him. And because Tarinipatra belonged to his area, the area under his supervision, he decided, I will award the title before anybody else does. So he is invited to the court, and these are the, of course, we talked about that Sangita, Chaturanga, Vyaktakhyara, Ganita, and those are the 8 categories, of which Tarinipatra, being a saintly figure, never used to reveal details of his early life. Once in 1965 and after that period when my guru was running, he would never reveal details of anything other than Sangita Avadhana, because he did not want to mention details about his personal life, because he was very inclined into the Vaishnava tradition. Therefore, he saw that as a reflection of Adambara. Sangeetavadhana, things he mentioned as soul exercises to tell students that this is the level of mastery that was expected in music, that was considered average in the 1930s when several other gurus were around. The Kalikut Royal Court, in order to organize the Ashtavadhana examination in the 1930s, invited at least over 100 gurus for each of these subcategories again. And there were overlaps. For example, somebody who was an expert in the Gita or the Gana could be an expert in the Veena tradition as well, which is common. And not counting that, there were over 100 experts which were invited from the nearby courts, neighboring courts of again Dara court, Chikiti, Surangi, and invariably Pandit of the Mukti Mandapa Sabha. The Mukti Mandapa, for awareness, is a seat. It's a big mandapa within the precincts of the Puri temple, where Brahmin Pandits of the Sola Sasana, or the 16 prized villages, would be invited in order to sit on that Brahma Bedi. It is known as Brahma Bedi because anyone who sits on top of it is considered equivalent to Brahma. So Pandits from the Sola Sasana would come and adorn the Mukti Mandapa, and they were the highest authority in anything, any conflict in ancient Odisha. So if you have a conflict in the field of Nyaya, or something is amiss in the Puri temple, there is some Jyotisha conjunction which is not clear which day to conduct the Niti, there is some conflict regarding who will take the position of a Sevayata who has done something wrong, so will be dismissed from service, appoint somebody else. There is some conflict regarding adoption or Sadibanda, the initiation ritual. Then again, the Mukti Mandapa is the highest authority, even above the Gajapati kings. And the Rajaguru would preside over the Mukti Mandapa, the Rajaguru of the Gajapati dynasty. Then they would, any acceptance from the Mukti Mandapa is the actual stamp in ancient Odisha, otherwise it is not valid. Mukti Mandapa stamp means Gajapati stamp and Puri temple. So it is approved by Jagannatha himself, because Jagannatha is considered the overlord. So Pandits from the Mukti Mandapa will be invariably invited to this. The Sangeetavadhana was considered one of the Upavedas, because Gandharva Veda is considered the Upaveda of Sama Veda. Therefore, it was also called Gandharva Avadhana. And therefore, when the Kalikot Royal Court organized this Ashtavadhana, they invited Pandits from the Puri Mukti Mandapa as well, who brought Sriyangalagi, Khandua and all, in case the examinee qualifies the examination, that would be offered. There was elaborate ritual for that with the chanting of Vedic mantras and all that, depending upon the recipient and depending upon the examination as well. So imagine this in 1930, in a big one of the bigger courts of Odisha, there is this elaborate examination, and there's 18 hours of intensive grilling for a period of over a month. And any break is considered, because the intention is that to wear you out, and even at the sense of, even at extreme exhaustion, you should be able to answer. That is the point of the exercise. These are the 8 subdivisions of the Sangeetavadhana. Gita or Gana, which is vocal music. Vocal music is something that I'll talk about further. And these classifications have been told to me by senior disciples of Acharya Tarini Charanapatra, Guru Madhukishwar Pani and Guru Bhubaneswara Senapati mostly, but also 106-year-old Padma Shri Guru Gopinath Swami, who got the Padma Shri award just now. They also had certain mystic tantric sadhana aspects that they won't reveal no matter. A little bit of which I have received, but it is strictly restricted to, it is considered guhya, therefore not to be told anywhere in public. That was also there as the, after you qualify all this, there would be a examination consisting of bijaksharas and certain yantra and tantra practices, which further was there to ensure that you are not using any unfair methods. For example, the Shatkarma. Because Shatkarma and Tantra practices are very common in ancient Odisha. It was considered one of the Avadhanas itself, but it was not encouraged in the other things. Stambhana, Mohana, Vasyochatan, all that. And even in the music tradition, that was some, it was, the music tradition was intimately tied with the Tantra because musicians would often do Nila Saraswati and Matangi sadhana and all that. And they had those gifts from the goddesses. They had the specific risky sadhanas, Swayana Durga sadhana, which was very common in the Kalikot area. Saraswati, as I said, Nila Saraswati is the deity for the musician tantric community. As for these 8 divisions, Gita or Gana was considered vocal music, Kantha Sangita. Shastra, which is ability to quote from Sangita Narayana, Gita Prakasha, Sangita Muktabali, Sangita Arnava Chandrika, Gita Govinda, Natya Shastra, Sangita Ratnakara, Daktilam, Kohaliyam, Naradya Sikhya, Jagyavalkya Sikhya. The Shiksha texts were also considered because Samavedic ascension, Upaveda of Samaveda, therefore some details about the Samavedic tradition were also involved in this. Then further, later texts Jagannatha, even the mastery over in the repertoire, the texts that were sung were also shastras, just like the Gita Govinda. Are my slides visible or have they vanished?
All okay.
It's visible, right?
Yes, yes.
So, what was I on? Shastra. The texts, the medieval texts or the kavyas which were sung, for example, the Kishora Chandrananda Champu, the writings of Kavi Samrat Upendra Bhanja, Vaidesa Vyasa Koti Brahmanda Sundari Rasa, and Dinakrishna Rasa Kalloda, Abhimanyu Vidagdha Chintamani, Bhakta Charana Mathura Mangala. All this was considered aspect of Shastra, the explanation, elaboration with respect to older tikas, of which was considered an essential prerequisite in order to qualify Sangita Avadhana, because in order to sing a song, you need to know what a song is, what a raga is, what a prabandha is, and thereby again the definition will harken back to these Shastras. And there are Odia Shastras that are written, composed in Odia as well, like the Gita Prakasa Boli, the Sangita Sara Boli, Lakshana Chandrodaya, there are ancient tikas of the Sangita Narayana. So the ability to cite from the Shastras and not just cite but explain the Shastras in a way that can only be received by the oral tradition. That is what was prized. Again, I'll give examples of that. Then the third part was Rachana or Bhagyakara. Each of these were considered sub-avadhanas. So Ashtabadhana, 8 avadhanas, and these are sub-avadhanas. Upa, which was also used. Bhagyakara, which is again a term of the Sangita Shastras. A composer of the highest merit who composes not only the text or the lyric, which is the bhak, but also the geya, the melodic portion, was called a bhak geyakara. The inferior qualities in the context of music, not in kavya, in the qualities of music, the inferior composer is he or she who cannot compose both of these aspects by himself. So you need to be qualified in practical singing and only then you can write. If you write but you cannot sing, therefore you are not entitled to invest the musical aspects of raga, tala, swara, laya, then you are not considered, you are considered an adhama composer. You are considered a Bayakara only, which is almost an insulting term. You are considered a Bayakara if you cannot write, but you can only set to tune, which is the pratha these days. These days we have very few Bhagyakaras. Mostly we find people, somebody writes and somebody other composes. So the harmony that is expected in the ancient world, as I will talk about further, there are several niyamas that can never be followed if this is split between two people, because both the people will never know the overlapping rules that exist. This Bhagyakara is considered the highest, the only singer in the northern tradition, in the Hindustani music tradition. We have something called Atai. The Atai singer is the singer who knows nothing about Shastra and can only sing. He sings extremely well. But if you ask him what exactly the raga which you are singing is derived from which grama, which murchana, they cannot answer. And that is considered, that unawareness is considered a form of laxness towards this Upavedic tradition. So this is in the within the Sangita tradition, it is called Nada Veda. It is the aim of it is called Nada Brahma. You reach Brahma, and there are mystic symbols, there are mystic diagrams that are drawn. You are given yantras to meditate. So that core tradition that is known only to that is considered to be mastery over the Sangita. So that is the Bhagyakara or Rachana Avadhana, where you are immediately asked to compose a song based on certain literary and musical constraints that you can only qualify if you know both. Then you have three kinds of Badhya Avadhanas. You have Tata Vadhya. Vadhyas in musical treatises are classified into four types. Tata, which is string instruments, Anadha, which is membrane instruments, which is leather instruments, Susira, which is wind instruments, and then you have Ghana, which is the things like Kangsya, Karatala, Guinea, all that. So metallic instruments. Herein it has not been considered a separate category, it is considered within the Badhya Anadha tradition because the Badhya Anadha Avadhana is also known as the Tala Avadhana. So you have the Tata Badhya Avadhana, which is stringed instrument Avadhana, which is again mostly the Veena. All music instruments in ancient India were called Veena, various types of Veena. In Odisha, the Bipanchi, the Naradi, these are the two Veenas. The Bipanchi Veena was considered the soul, the best of the Veenas, because in the Bipanchi you had the custom of saying Shiva resides in this part of the Veena and Parvati resides in this part. So it was considered in service. In the Puri temple also, the Bipanchi was the Veena that was played in the service of Lord Jagannath. It is made of Rakta Chandana or Khadira wood, embellished with gold or silver or ivory. That was the custom. And that activity, the making activity, was also centered around Paradakimudi. That also the text specifies. So the Tattabadhya Avadhana was known as Veena Avadhana in common parlance. Anadhavadhya again. The Anadhavadhya Avadhana, the percussive aspect of Odissi music, the Tala aspect, is presided over by an instrument called Mardala. This Mardala is considered the best of the rhythm instruments. So Anadhe Mardala Sreshta is what the Odishan Shastras will say. So the Mardala is also the one that is in service in the Puri temple. In Puri temple, you have all these four classes of instruments. You have Nritya, you have Gan or vocal music because Purnanga music is offered to Lord Jagannath. You had a similar tradition in Simanchala until the period that it was under the Odishan kings. So the Simanchala also preserved the tradition, but it has unfortunately receded totally almost. But it is there in the inscriptions if you check. So these four kinds of instruments, Anadhavadya or Talavadhana, you have single Talavadhanis in Odisha, the last of which is alive until now. Pandit Ganapati Rauto, who is again a student of Acharya Tarini Charanapatra, he is a Talavadhana. Although he knows the Veena, he has qualified the Talavadhana, which consists of various strange practices. Again, I'll mention. Susira Vidya again is wind instrument, which is of course the main is the Vamshi, the flute, and Mukhari, which is the Mahuri or the Mukha which is also prevalent. The Mukha or the Mahuri was also there in the services of both Simanchala and Puri. The Susira is considered a separate avadhana, so it might seem strange because the stringed instrument is a melodic instrument. The wind instrument is also a melodic instrument. For the drum percussive, we can make it separate. It is rhythm oriented, so it's something different. But why two melodic instruments? Two melodic instruments because nada is again a technical term. I will not go into it. Nada you can take in a very superficial way. You can take it to mean sound, but it has more of mystic associations. Nada again is considered the Nada that is born from Sajiva and the Nada which is born from Nirjiva Vastus. The Tatavadya is considered more or less Nirjiva because it is a string on a wooden base. That is all. You need to pluck the string will generate the sound. Of course, there is some human input. It is still Ahata Nada, it is not Anahata, but still it is considered more or less from the instrument. In the wind instrument, that changes because the human pranavayu is involved when you are blowing a wind instrument, Sushiravadya. Therefore, the nada of the Sushiravadya is considered Mishra. It is both from the non-living Nirjiva as well as the Sajiva. So the instrument by itself and you are blowing into it, investing your pranavayu into it. In the mystic practices of the Vangshi also Acharya Tarini Charanapatra played. But that he has not taught in depth to anyone, I think. He has only told a few aspects. Nobody bothered to learn the Vangshi tradition by itself. The ones that did have passed away, they're no longer. They were one of the earliest did. They are no longer around. In the Vangshi tradition, they had again that Tantra aspect. They had the Pancha Prana to be invested into the Vangshi, which was their sadhana was that. Then you have Nritya and Natya. Nritya is of course dance. You need to know mudra, bhangi, and all that. Odissi dance, what you see today, that. And of course, the main aspect of that is abhinaya. You have to interpret the song through the nritya. Why is nritya is under Sangita Avadhana? Because Geetam, Badhyam, cha Nrityam, cha, all three are considered Sangita. Sangita Muchyate. All three are considered Sangita together. So Sangita in the Shastraic meaning does not mean only vocal music or just melodic music. It also means Gita, Vadya, Nritya, all three. So music, vocal music and instrumental music. Vadya, which again instrumental music and percussion is also under instrumental music. Nritya. Under Nritya you will find Nritya, Nritya, Natya, which is that classification. Here it is split into two because Natya was considered theatrical practice, which is what the Natya Shastra specializes in. So within the Natya tradition, you will have meditation, theatre, you will have the tradition of Sanskrit theatre, such as the Jagannatha Vallabha Nataka, which was performed in the Puri temple. You will have the Usha Niruddha Nataka. You will have the Gopinatha Vallabha Nataka, which was performed in Pararakimudi. You will have the mastery over the Leela Nataka traditions, purely the performative aspect. And in these natakas also, the vocal aspect, there was music, just like the Natya Shastra mentions there has to be singer, there has to be musician, there has to be orchestras, just like that, that aspect, it's all tied into each other, which is why it's as one part of the Sangita Avadhana. Now I will enter into some details of mostly the Gita Shastra, the first four categories, because the last four have not been communicated to us from Acharya Tarini Patra in as much detail. The last three have not been. The first five have been. So I will just end the last three, then I'll proceed to the practical parts of that. The Susira Vadya, as I was talking about, in the Bainsi Karo, the flautists were known as Bangsi from Bangsi, Bainsi Karo. The Bainsi Karos were obsessed with the yogic tradition, first of all, because much like the vocal musicians, their mastery lay in the control of the pranavayu. So then they had to be invested in the yogic tradition because now you have to control the vayu and you will have to know, because the Odishan tradition is very much obsessed with the yogic tradition, Ida, Pingala, Susumna, all that. And we will encounter yogic terms in that practice as well. So it is seen as a method of opening the Susumna. If you are doing anything which is concerned with the wind, singing, vocal pipes. So the Susira tradition is that. Then the Nritya tradition, of course, Abhinaya. Much of that detail has been preserved because Odissi Nritya is a very vibrant tradition and the detail everything is available. You can ask the Odissi dancer tradition and they can speak a lot about that. Note that I should do is in the 1940s when Acharya Tarini Chandpatra established a school in northern Punjab. In the examination of the music, he included Nritya and Natya aspects of that. So students of vocal music had to know something about Nritya. They had to know Parija. Parija is the old Odia word for mudra, which is more commonly known as mudra. They had to know Bhangi. They had to know Utha, Boitha, Chali, Pali, all that, which are terms, again belonging to the dance tradition, which have been very well preserved. Within the dance tradition, again, that mystic aspect that this tradition, the Avadhana test is looking for the highest level of practice of art. So in the Nritya tradition, they will look for Anga Shuddhi, which is something Guru Deva Prasad Das used to highlight. Acharya Tarini Chandrapatra also used to say, you are obsessed with more or less what is known in Odia as Mappa. So if you do a mudra, you are obsessed with this distance, how much is the hand stretched. If you overdo it, it is considered, you have to do it just the right amount for it to be considered a sadhana. If you do anything less than that, it is considered merely a performance practice. And he knew Abhinaya as well because in his early days, Tarini Chanapatra used to do dance, used to take part in theatre in the Dharakot Royal Theatre. So we'll not get into that aspect. We have several theatrical Nataka pieces written by him. We have some detail. Guru Ladukishar Pani maintains the Abhinaya parts of that practice. And with that, we will enter into a few details. So music mostly has two parts. If we are talking about music as a melody, music, the Gita part. The Gita part will have melodic music, it will have percussive or rhythmic aspect. So more or less what is Swaratmaka, what is obsessed with Swara and what is obsessed with the Talatmaka. The Swaratmaka aspect is also known as Ragatmaka because the Raga is the basic body. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with the terminology of classical music, any of the classical musics of India for that matter. There is a pan-Indian shared vocabulary. There is again for the region in each of the traditions. Some words that you must know are swara, which is the note, which is sari, gama, padhani, the sapta swara. Sari, gama, padhani, sa. These swaras in their basic form are called swaras. Swara.
Pratik, uh, are you going now for the practical
Yes,
aspect?
yes.
So, can we take just 5 to 7 minutes break?
Please do so.
And meanwhile,
Oh, it's 11.
the
Yes, yes.
coordinator and the chairperson of the session, so they are here. So, we will just felicitate them, and
Yes.
then you can continue with the practical session.
Okay.
Okay. Uh, just five
Ah,
minutes, but you can be there.
we will proceed with the practical post break, I think.
The break means like it's just formal break. Not, we are not going anywhere. We all are
Okay.
here. It's
Okay.
just a felicitation of the chairperson and the coordinator.
Got it.
Yeah, just be there.
Okay.
Let this be with you. I'll take that, sir. एतावत्पर्यन्तं सङ्गीतावधानस्य सैद्धान्तिकपक्षम् अस्मभ्यम् उद्बोधितवन्तः प्रतीक् पट्नायक् महोदयः, तेषां कृते हार्दं हार्दं धन्यवादं वितनोमि। पञ्चनिमेषात्मकः कालः मध्ये अस्माभिः स्थगितः। प्राक्टिकल् ज्ञानात् पूर्वम् अस्माभिः सह अद्य समवेताः सन्ति द्वैतवेदान्तविभागस्य आचार्याः अध्यक्षाश्च आचार्याः पि नारायणमहोदयाः। तान् सम्प्रार्थये कृपया वेदिकाम् अलङ्कुर्वन्तु इति। एवमेव अस्य सत्रस्य सन्ति सर। अस्य सत्रस्य सञ्चालकाः भवन्ति आचार्याः ज्ञानरञ्जन पण्डा महोदयाः, साहित्यविभागे सहायक अध्यापकाः सन्ति। तान् अपि सम्प्रार्थये कृपया वेदिकाम् अलङ्कुर्वन्तु इति। एवमेव सेण्टर् आफ् ह्यूमन् सैन्सस् ऋषिहुड् विश्वविद्यालयस्य निदेशकाः आचार्याः सम्पदानन्दमिश्रवर्याः, तान् अपि सम्प्रार्थये कृपया वेदिकां प्रति आगच्छन्तु इति। अध्यक्षाणां सञ्चालकानाम् उभयोः च सम्माननकार्यक्रमः अधुनैव भविष्यति। अतः हरियाणास्थ ऋषिहुड् विश्वविद्यालय पक्षतः सेण्टर् फॉर ह्यूमन् सैन्सेस् इत्यस्य निर्देशकान् आचार्यान् सम्पदानन्दमिश्रवर्यान् सम्प्रार्थये आगतान् अध्यक्षान् सम्मानयन्तु इति। एवमेव सम्पदानन्दमिश्रवर्यान् सम्प्रार्थये अस्य सत्रस्य सञ्चालकाः ज्ञानरञ्जन पण्डा महोदयाः, तेषामपि सम्माननं कुर्वन्तु इति। इतः परं यथावत् सभा भविष्यति। सैद्धान्तिकपक्षः एतावत्पर्यन्तम् अस्माभिः श्रुतः सङ्गीतावधानस्य। सम्प्रति अनुप्रयोगात्मकः पक्षः अस्माभिः श्रूयते। अतः पुनः सभाम् आरम्भं कुर्मः। कृपया भवन्तः अस्मिन् पार्श्वे आगच्छन्ति चेत् श्रोतुं द्रष्टुं च शक्नुवन्ति।
Pratik, you can begin.
Yes. I hope the screen is visible.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. So yes, as I was saying, I will gradually begin the aspects that have been preserved in terms of practical demonstration. This will be a little bit technical. So as I was saying, as I acquainting you with some of the basic terms that I will be frequently using henceforth. I talked about what is called swara. What we call a note in English is called a swara. Any of you basically acquainted with any form of music would know that we have the sari gama padani all over India. Sari gama padani are known as the saptaswara. So anywhere I mention sari gama, that is the swara. Then we have a thing called varna. Varna is a kind of movement, which will be more clear in demonstration. In the Sangeeta Shastras, I am entering this. I'm proceeding according to the pedagogy presented in the Sangeeta Narayana itself. It's a 1650 text. So, it goes without saying that these aspects have been preserved to this exact level of accuracy only because this lineage has emphasized that scholastic Avadhana aspect for several times. In the history of Paralakemundi also, from where many of the Sangita Narayana is from Paralakemundi, several of these aspects have been collected by Acharya Tarini Chanapatra has learned this from Radha Govinda Rajaguru's tradition. That is a life tradition. Then in Paralakemundi you had another Dasavadhani, Kavi Bhushana Gopinatha Patra, again sometime in the 18th century. So every 100 years or so there was a very active Avadhana tradition in that place. Paralakemundi incidentally is also there in some of the, what do I say, the sayings of ancient Odisha, which if I can take a little bit of time. This. There is a saying in Odia, Ganitare Khandapada, Sanskritare Noyagada, Kshatriyare Gumusara, Dharakotta Rajaniti, Gandharva Vidyare Paralakemundi, Mone Rakhitu Mati. This is what Upendra Bhanja's grandfather Dhananjay Bhanja tells to Upendra Bhanja. So with that in mind, unsurprisingly, Paralakemundi has preserved these aspects with almost a one-to-one correlation between the theory and practice, which is very rare anywhere in Indian music. That is one thing I will say. It's very rare to find, even within traditions that have been preserved treatises and texts and published and manuscripts are there. It is very rare to find a practicing musician who continues deriving from the text and demonstrating in parallel. So these aspects are from that tradition. As I was saying, swara. Stringing together one or more swara is called varna. So then there are 4 kinds of varnas. Sthayi varna. Say sa, 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 sa. Same varna repeated multiple times. Sthayi varna because it doesn't move. So sa is a sthayi varna. We will have arohi varna with something which climbs. Sa, re, ga, ma. Climbs upwards. Sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa is upward. Sa, ni, da, pa, ma, ga, re, sa. Avarohi varna. Then we have something called Misra varna. Misrita varna. Compound varna with sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, pa, ma. Climbs, falls, something like that. That is one aspect. Then we have another technical term called gamaka, which I will go into later. Another basic term that you must know is raga. What exactly is a raga? Raga is a melodic form formed of a particular choice and order of swaras. So swaras, when they move, specific swaras move in a specific manner, is called a raga. So sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa, ni, da, pa, ma, ga, re, sa. In the Odissi music tradition is called Sankarabhara. Sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa, ni, da, pa, ma, ga, re, sa is called Devakiri, one of the older ragas. This is the first raga that is taught. Sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa, ni, da, pa, ma, ga, re, sa is called Malava Gauda. Even if you do not know the technicalities of music, I'm sure it sounds a little bit different, the way these scales are climbing and falling. This compound entity is called a raga. This is Malava Gauda, the raga that Jayadeva first uses in India, ancient India, whatever texts have been found, Jayadeva is the first to use this. Then we have sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa, ni, da, pa, ma, ga, re, sa. Gujjari, again, Jayadeva uses first. Sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa, ni, da, pa, ma, ga, re, sa. Bhairavi, again, Jayadeva uses first. So these are ragas. Basically, it sounds a particular way. Within the ragas, you have certain rules of including or excluding swaras. For example, sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa, ni, da, pa, ma, ga, re, sa. There are rules here further by which you can deduct the Gandhara and the Nishada, which is Ga and Ni. From Sa, Re, Ga, Ma, Pa, Da, Ni, Sa, if you cut Ga and Ni, you will get Sa, Re, Ma, Pa, Dha, Sa, Dha, Pa, Ma, Re, Sa. So this is also how ragas are formed, by deducting, by differentiating in the ascent and descent. So every time I'm saying Sa, Re, Ga, Ma, Pa, Da, Ni, Sa, Ni, Da, Pa, Ma, Re. There is an aroha, there is an avaroha. Sa, Re, Ma, Pa, Dha, Sa, Dha, Pa, Ma, Re, Sa. This is known as Khandaka Modi. Similarly, Sa, Re, Ma, Pa, Ni, Sa, Ni, Pa, Ma, Re, Sa. Madhyamadi. So you can see where I am going with this. This is an exponential number of things. You can now say I will make an Audava raga, which is a raga. For students of music, this is something very elementary. Just to make it accessible, because I am going to increase the complexity as I proceed. So you will have Sampurna raga, a raga which has all 7 swaras. Sarigama padani sa sa ni da pa ma ga re sa. All the ragas that I was saying in the beginning, different ga, different me, but Sarigama padani, all swaras are there. So these are all Sampurna ragas, which are called, which derive from the Murchanas, which are again technical. You will have Shadava ragas consisting of 6 swaras. So Sarigama pada sa, Sarigama pa ni sa ni pa ma ga re sa. You will have Audava ragas, 5 swaras, as I was telling. Clearly, the number of ragas is unlimited. In the Gita Avadhana or the Gana Avadhana, this is what they would do. They would ask you to, there would be a test of raga. You were supposed to know all the ragas that are popular or pracharita, the ragas that are lesser known or apracharita, the ragas that are totally extinct, sort of. But you are supposed to know because you are giving the test. So the questions typically would be sing a prabandha in the raga Dravida Gauda, which is a very rare raga, or sing an alapa, alapti. Alapa is a kind of elaboration, what is called an alapana in Carnatic music and alap in Hindustani tradition. In Odissi tradition, called alapa or alapti. Now they would not leave you with that. They would say, sing this raga, this rare raga, an alap of this raga, an elaboration of this raga. And each raga will further have 10 lakshanas. It will have graha, angsa, nyasa, mandra, madhya, tara, and nyasa. For example, on which note do you rest? I will take an example because this will invariably become complex. Say the raga Suddha Bhairava. Sa re ga ma pa dha ni sa ni da pa ma ga re sa. Here, when musicians sing an elaboration of this raga, or when this raga is taught in an elemental form, you will be taught a dharana or a catchphrase. That dharana will be sa re ga ma pa dha pa. You are supposed to rest on pa. You cannot rest on any other swara as you wish. This is called nyasa on pa. Pa dha ni dha pa. On the ni you have to do ni dha pa ma ga re. You are supposed to again do apanyasa on re, which is the secondary resting place. Re ga ma re ga sa. So you are supposed to re ga ma re. From ma you are supposed to come to re re ga. You are supposed to do re ga sa. That is the identity of the raga Suddha Bhairava as described in the treatises. Why is this? Because it is deriving from further technical things called this grama, this murchana. It is coming, and that is what decides how it should be. This is also linked to the Vedic tradition because this is ultimately deriving from the scales that were used in the chanting of the Vedas, especially the Samaveda again. And if a proper study is done of that with respect to the regional traditions, I'm sure we will find something. It has been found in the other traditions as well. With that in mind, keeping the Dasa Lakshana of the ragas and the 3 types of apracharita, and totally lost ragas, you are supposed to sing an alapa, 6 limbs of alapa, sadanga alapa, they would say, and the alapa is done in 6 ways. You have the akara alapa. I was singing the alapa in the form of swaras. I was speaking out sa re ga re ga ma pa da pa. You are supposed to sing this in akara. So you would sing this Why this is taken seriously is the alapa is seen as a form of invocation to the raga devatas, because each raga is seen as a deity. You have an anthropomorphic form which is encapsulated in a dhyana shloka, which is In the musician language, it will be called Raga Rupa, Raga Murti, Raga Dhyana. In the Patachitra painting tradition, they will draw that dhyana. For example, Sabari Ragini is a tribal huntress lady sitting on top of a mountain wearing a skirt made of peacock feathers and pulling a snake from a sandalwood tree. Akrusya Chandana Taru, something like that. Sabari Ragam Kathita Munindre, Kathita Munindre. So there are these shlokas, and you are supposed to invoke the raga, do avahana of the raga by using these shlokas and the alapa. Therefore, the alapa is seen as sort of again that mystic thing comes again. So we have covered akara and swara alapa, which is the first anga. You are supposed to know the tenaka alapa. Again, in the treatises, there is something called tenaka. Tenaka is considered mangalya suchaka shabda, which is te na 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 te na na. There are specific orders of combining these varnas, the units being te na ri ta na. All these things are there. You are supposed to combine them in specific manners, and when you do that, it is supposed to sound mantravat. It is supposed to sound like a mantra. It is the mantra of the musicians. Ta na ta na ta na 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 ritete na 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 na. So they would sing things like this. There were further complicated structures that were bound by chanda or rhythm. This tenaka is considered the origin of the rhythmic cycle in the process of alapa, which is further compounded when you move to patto alapa. Patto is the musical term for when you play any rhythmic instrument such as the mardana, you have specific words that reflect specific strokes on the membrane. So you will have dha, thini, dhrimi, kita, dadigana, thalang, and each of these rhythmic syllables is called patto. It's a language in itself. For each of the musical traditions, it's a different language. So you must have seen Odissi dances. There is a form called Pallavi. They will dance Pallavi. Tari jam, tari jam, tari jam, tari jam, jam, tari jam. This tari jam, all of this are patta varnas. These patta varnas you are supposed to use in a form of alapa. This is what is called patta alapa. Then there is chanda alapa, in which you are supposed to use metric poetry. Metric poetry, you are supposed to use Guru Raghu Veda in different kinds of ways in order to produce different metrical structures before you move into complete fixed rhythm. Because within chanda you are not bound by tala and you can experiment within that. In chanda you would typically sing either metric poetry in Sanskrit or in Odia. For example, in Sanskrit you would sing the dhyana shlokas that I was talking about. Till now you have that practice. If you see in specific Pallavi traditions, I don't think this practice is there in non-Odishan music traditions of singing the dhyana shloka of the raga before the raga. So for the raga Sankarabharana, we will sing from the Sangita Narayana. Vyaghra charma sakalam pidadhano bhogi hara badayangada Sandravhuti parilipta sarira Sankarabharana Esa hiraga So for each raga, we would sing something like this. The method of breaking this, and the breaks are known as bhangi or bhango in Odia. The method of breaking this and elaborating is is essentially the core of this kind of alapa. You are also supposed to sing Odia metrical poetry, which is a form that is linked. For example, Shardula Vikridita and Upajati, all that has been used in Odia poetry. You have Shikarini, all that has been used in the earlier Nataka, such as Gopinatha Vallabha Nataka, Maharasa Lila, unpublished Prahlada Nataka, Radha Prema Lila, still surviving. It's very much a practice. For example, you would sing व्यर्थे कान माळती ପୋଇମତେ ସରବରି ଯାଉଛି ବ୍ୟର୍ଥେ କାନନ ମାଳତି ପରିମତେ ସରବରି ଯାଉଛି. This all has been done in Odia as well. Then you have a form called Gadya, in which you are supposed to sing Gadya portion. This might seem striking. This is also preserved until now. The Champu is a work written by Kavisurja Baladeva Ratha. The musical treatises describe Champu as Gadya Padya Mayam Kavyam Champu Ityavidhyate. So a Kavya which has both Gadya and Padya is known as Champu. Kavisurja has incidentally written the Gadya portion in Sanskrit and the Padya portion in Odia. So Odia poems. In that Gadya portion, the Gadya portion was also sung. Here also Sanskrit prose is sung, Odia prose is also sung. For example, the Sanskrit prose would be sung like Odia prose is sung even till now like, say in the Radha Prema Lila, when Radha enters. Suppose there is a song in which Radha is going to sing Kiriro Sorosika Boro Dholi Nodi Amoro Dhruti Ki Krishna is speaking to Radha. Keli Rasa Rasika Vara Dhali Nadiya Muro Dhruti Ki. So before this is sung, this will be preceded by a prelude which will describe the context in which this song is sung. It will be like, this is from the Radha Prema Lila Chikiti in the Raga Kumbha Kamati. Sri Radha Sri Radha Epori Vachana Bhasante Sri Kishora Vara Lolita Kothari ए गीत रचना they would say a gita rachana. The song is being composed in this context. That is one. Then you have another form called Vachanika, in which usually 14 letter poetry, which is called Chaudakhyari, metric poetry, but not sung in bound to a tala, is sung. For example, this is Vachanika Alapa, is the form of Alapa that was used in the singing of texts such as the Odia Bhagavata, the Dandi Ramayana, or Jagamohan Ramayana, the Sarala Mahabharata, and further things like Nrsimha Purana, any Purana that was read in ancient Odisha. My grandfather's side hails from a family of traditional Purana Pandas, and they would sing the Nrsimha Purana parts or say invocations to Jagannatha in Chaudakhyari in this style. In the Raga Marua. Hey, Jaya Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Jagannatha Jagata Dharana Jaya Jaya Jagannatha Santha Nivarana हे जय जय जगन्नाथ जय जय जगन्नाथ दारु रूपधारी जय जय जगन्नाथ श्री हरि 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 हे हरि हे हरि नारायण हे This singing Sri Hari as an invocation comes from that Purana Panda tradition. You were supposed to know all these 6 forms of Anapana, this meticulous classification. You were supposed to know the methods of vinyasa or improvisation. This is again another test in the Gita Avadhana, it was called a Gana Parikya. You were supposed to do improvisation in Swara, Raga, Chanda, Tala and compound forms. Swara is something I have told. Swara is when you take individual notes and you do improvisation in a note basis. For this, we need a song to build upon that I will demonstrate. For example, this is a song. A song is known as a prabandha in the classical tradition. It's called a prabandha because it is tied. Prakrushta Rupena Bandha. It is tied with raga, tala, swara and all these. There are all these constraints in place which I have to respect. This is a song by Kavi Samrat Upendra Bhanja, original composition, Suddha Bhairava Jati Tala. So this is around 1700s composition, one of the older compositions, preserved from his direct lineage. The song itself runs like this. Mone ki panchila re mora ki panchila re mora mone ki panchila Bini kumbha pare sat kumbha dhui Bini kumbha pare sat kumbha dhui pancha manaku tosila morama Here you would be expected to improvise. This is the base song that I sung. You would be supposed to do vinyasa in the sense of swara level. Suppose Mone ki panchila re. This is I am doing on a note basis. The individual notes are in focus. You can improvise with the whole raga in mind. So you take phrases and count, not individual notes. Mone ki panchila re This is another kind of improvisation that you can do. There would be chandatmaka vistara or vinyasa, which would be differentiating on the split up of the words. So, mone ki panchila re, mone ki panchila re. So, I will do mone ki panchila. Mone ki panchila. Mone ki panchila. So that is the kind of thing that you would do. And there are further complexities that are very much like the Vedic recitation methods where you weave words together. It is very much like that. You can repeat words together. You can say mone ki panchila, panchila re mo rama. You can do that. You can say mone ki panchila re. There are things like that, which is very much allowed to the Patha traditions of the Veda. Then you have Tala based kriyas. For example, Beni kumbha pare beni kumbha pare beni kumbha pare sata kumbha sata kumbha thoi ପଞ୍ଚମନକୁ ତୁସିଲା ମୋରା ମା ପଞ୍ଚମନକୁ ତୁସିଲା ମୋରା ମା. This is what I did as compositor, what is called Mishra Vinyasa. Therefore, this is where complexity comes in. Therefore, you have several techniques on how to do vinyasa. In the tests, you would be specified, do this kind of vinyasa in this song, in this raga, in this line. Now, that is a constraint that will be imposed. And then you have to do it. You have to, the words might not make sense. It will be intentionally given such that a song will be chosen, but there will be no break. And if you take a break, it will become meaningless. Say, if I break this is something that is very much taken. The bhangi or the bhango is taken very seriously in the Odissi tradition because the literature is of a very high order. The literature is not treated as if it is not important. I can't say, for example, Veni kumbha pore satta kumbha thoi. I can't say kumbha thoi because it doesn't mean anything. Satta kumbha means gold. I can't say Veni kumbha pore satta kumbha thoi will not mean anything at all. This is permitted in some other musical traditions if you look. Especially in North India, this is not seen as a problem because when you are singing, you are free to do this with the lyric. In Odisha, if you do this in the music tradition, it is considered butchering of the Sahitya. You can't do that. So that is another additional constraint. For example, the kind of test that would be taken is, you will be given a song which has a huge samasa, like the Khyacham. Khira Sagara Sambhava Kucha Kumbha Jugala Parirambha Chatura, a single word. Now, where do you do vinyasa here? You can't break it. Khira Sagara Sambhava Kucha Kumbha Jugala Parirambha Chatura. So here you will focus your improvisational mind on how to play with the Guru Laghu Chanda within this single word. Khira Sagara Sambhava Kucha Kumbha Jugala Parirambha Chatura Kucha Kumbha Jugala Parirambha Chatura He Kompa Adhara That is what you would do. You would do Kamanukampadhara. This is where the play comes in. That is the kind of rigor that would be required to execute. So you are supposed to, even as a musician, you are supposed to know where to break the word, where the samasa is formed, what kind of a samasa is it. Which is why it helped to know, like in this Avadhana, it helped to know the Ganita Shastra, because you can put Ganita here in the Swara Vinyasa. It helped to know Vyakarana, because here it comes in handy when you break it while respecting the rules of the Sahitya. That is one thing. And that is only a single aspect that we are talking about, the methods of vinyasa. And this is something the Veena tradition would also specialize. For example, it's very difficult to explain these things. When you are playing in the Veena Kara tradition, when you are playing on the Veena, you cannot lift your hand, because if you lift your hand, the vibration of the string will stop. If the vibration of the string stops, then it will sound very harsh. So your hand needs to be always moving, no matter whatever the speed. It can be slow, it can be fast. Your hand always needs to be moving. You cannot lift the hand or leave the string. Therefore, that reflects in the Vinakara method of vinyasa or alapa. So when my guru, or in the Ganjam tradition when we sing, when we are supposed to do what is called a tana, which I will come to later, within the song there are things, there are acrobatic things like that are executed. For example, Mora mone ki panchilare. If you are a student of music, you will know that this starts on the second matra of the third. So 1, 3, third matra. Mone ki pan. So now you cannot leave the first two matras empty. You will have to fill the first two matras in order to land on the third matra, which is called chindana. See, this is where the tala aspect is again blending in. You are doing the Avadhana examination in the vocal music thing, but here the tala aspect is tying in intricately. Without knowing that, you can't do this. Which is why it was that kind of a test, because if you do this, you are supposed to know that as well. And if you know that, know it well. If you don't know it, you can't execute this properly. So, Mora mone Panchilare Mora mone ki Panchilare Mora mone ki Panchilare Mora. So this kind of breakup, if you go into the Tala Shastras, this is called prastar, or compounding a simple thing, which is also present in the Ganita Shastras, how to compound. So Mo Rama, that is the piece. What they would do is they would count how many matras is this. Say this is X number of matras. How many ways can we break up X number of matras? It is a kriya like if you have 10, you can make 5 plus 5, you can do 2, 3, 2, 3, you can do 3, 2, 3, 2, you can do 5, 2, 3, you can do 2, 3, 5, 7, 3, 3, 7. That's the whole exercise, this, that. So now you decide you will do it Mora ma Panchela. That is where the mastery lies. Again, completely technical area. Panchadasha Gamaka. On each swara, you can sing a swara cleanly. I can sing. Sare Gama Padhani Sa Sa Ni Dha Pa Ma Ga Re Sa. This is the scale of the raga Suddha Bhairava. This is one of the most ancient ragas, arguably, of Indian music. In all of India, and Odissi repertoire, of course. Now, in this raga, you will have specific note actions or functions applied on specific notes. For example, Sa Ni Dha Pa Ma Ga Re Sa is a plain note. But in the Odissi tradition, the tendency is to execute the andolita on it. It's a natural tendency. Sa Ni Dha Pa Ma Ga Re Sa. This rounding thing that I did. Ni Dha Pa Ma Ga. Or double of this. Sa Ni Dha Pa Ma Ga Re Sa. This is called andolita. This is the single identifying characteristic of Odissi music. You won't find this in the other forms of music. Suppose in Carnatic music, you will find another dominant motif. You will not find this, you will find the Kampita Gamaka in their palas. Their Kampita itself is a different thing. This is a Gamaka. So I was singing Sa Ni Dha Pa, but now I am singing Sa Ni Dha Pa. So something more I am doing, some action I have applied on top of it. It is a Gamaka. The Gamana of a note is called a Gamaka. In other traditions, there are 7 kinds of Gamaka, 10 kinds of Gamaka. In the Odissi tradition, there are Panchadasha Gamaka. These are the names. Tripa, Spurita, Kampita, Leena, Andolita, Bali, Tribhinna, Kurula, Ahata, Ullasita, Prabhita, Bunkita, Mudrita, Namita, Misita. Apart from this, we have Odia names as well. For example, Prabhita would be called Diyaswara because Prabhana is jumping. Spurita would be called Purita in the local parlance. Bali would be called Baliai Kari Gaiva. Because Bali Gaiva, Bala Hoitiva, Baliaiva. That is one. Kurula would be derived as from the Kurala term, the movement of the potter's wheel, which moves on 2 axes. Even if some of you might not be students of music, I trust that you can listen to and make sense of the musical metaphor that they are using to describe. Tiripo is a fast flutter-like action. Tiripo, that which is ending in a very small, fluttery duration. So, demonstrate with respect to the raga Suddha Bhairava. There are specific swaras on which you do specific gamakas in order to bring the charitra of the raga. If you don't do that, there the raga is no more raga. It will become a mere scale. So, pa dha pa ni dha pa ni sa ni dha pa. This is called Tiripura. Spurita is when you sing notes in pa dha dha ni sa sa ni dha dha pa. The second note Furuchi or Sfuruchi is the language they would use. Kampita, when you rest on a note and you shake it. Ni. This is called a Kampita. And this you will encounter. Veni, Sat, Sat, Satakuva. This is called a Kampita. Satakuva Thoi. Lina. When one note becomes lina in another note. Re ga ma re ga sa. So ga sa. Pa da ni pa sa. Re ga ma re ga sa ga. This is called a lina. Because Gandhara is getting lina into Shadja. Andolita I have demonstrated. Body is when you take a twist. Bodai kari. Padha mapa. Instead of doing mapa directly, I'll do padha mapa. That shape it's a visual shape as well. That shape is called. We also have certain kinds of hand motions that are very typical while demonstrating. So you see padha mapa. It's like a knot. Tribhinna. Here something when a great musician sings, you can hear harmonics of a different note together. You will feel like you're hearing three layers at once. That is called Tribhinna. Purula is several bodies tied together. So, pada pani dani pada mapa madha pada mapa gama gapa mapa gama rega rema gama rega sare saga rega sare. So, sa nisa nire sare nisa dhani dhasa nisa dhani pada pani dhani pada. This action is called Purula. By the old gurus, it has been likened with the Kurala Chakra. Therefore, this Gamaka is also known as Kurala Basa. So, when a potter's wheel is rotating, it will rotate in this axis, it will also wobble like this. So, there are two axes of movement, which in physics language we will call this precession. When a top is precessing, it will move like this, it will also wobble like this. So, there is this axis is also there. This axis is also there, rotation. That is what this Purula does. It is a wobbling body gamaka. Pada pani dhani pada, which is 1 2 1 3 2 3 1 2. It's all the action is taking place. It's a it can be broken down in terms of Ganita. There is the ahata. When I am singing re, I will hit that note above re. So sa so I'm hitting the above note. It is striking the above note. Instead of saying Padha. So I'm hitting it. Panida is what I'm doing. Ullasita, when you do a big jump. Pa sa pada pasa. This is called an ullasita. Pravita is the series of jumps that I say. This is a jumping motion. It is compared with a wave. Gumpita. When Gumpita is when it is all closely tied together. Gumpha Gumpita. It is also counted as a Humkruta. Some also call it Humkruta because a Hum sound was sung earlier. For some reason, it was supposed to be for the Shuddhi of the Sushumna. So Hum. This was supposed to be like the mantra dhvani. Then you have Mudrita, where the lips, Otthaku Mudrita, lips are closed. So you will sing what is called humming. This is practiced by musicians because when you sing a song, when there is a Guru Akshara, then at that place you will have to do that. So bhangi first. I cannot say bhangi is incorrect. Bhang, since I have to sustain bhang the sound, this is called mudrita because it is slightly closed. Bhangi. Anywhere you find a conjunct, this will happen. There is the namita. Namita is linked to naiva, the nam dhatu. Therefore, we will use this when the note bows down very slowly. So, these kind of motions is called namita. Then you have, and also unnamita is comparable with this. Unnamita, ullasita, there is ullasita is also called unnamita. Therefore, unnamita is used for this in those places. Namita in that case will be used for certain softness of the voice. When you use this, there are several kinds of Mishrita Gamaka as well. It's further classified into further. I will not go into this. The point of saying all this is you will be asked to sing in Alapa where this Gamaka will be used here, or say compose a song where Spurita Gamaka is used on the occurrence of the word this. That is very difficult to do. Not only do you have to take into account J, in the Raga Sudha Vairava, in the note Ni, we are doing the Tiripa Gamaka. So Pada Ni Da Pa Ma Ga Re Ga Ma Re Ga. In Ga, we are executing the Leena Gamaka. Therefore, I will write a song where it will fall on that place. Now I have to take care of Tala as well. I have to take care of Chanda as well. I have to make it so that the word doesn't fall in between. It is not uncomfortable to sing it. If it cannot be sung, that is another problem. That is the kind of challenge that you will have to face. So this is the comparable graphic. The Andolita is a wave-like shape, just like this. Sa ni da pa just a wave. If you put it on a pitch meter, it will bring a wave. Kurula that I was demonstrating, the Kurula Gamaka is a circular. It's a circular motion. This is Kavi Samrat Upendra Bhanja, who is to the right. Upendra Bhanja standing, going down to Rama Sita, even to the Kshatriya family. It is his song that I was demonstrating, and we'll come back to this Chitrakavya thing later. I will again tell a few things of this Gita Avadhana. We are still talking about the Avadhana. Of course, we have touched a few things of the Tala Avadhana and the Veena aspect as well. But we are still talking about this one aspect. Kavi Surya Baladevarata is the author of the Champu. I will just demonstrate one song by him again. It is very difficult to execute vinyasa. This is one of the songs that would be given. It is in a rare raga. It is in a very challenging formation with respect to tala, and you will have to execute the kinds of vinyasa here. I will just say some traditional vinyasa kramas that have been passed down to us. Sani pa ma ga re sa re ga ma pa ma ga re sa ni sa re sa. This is one of the unusual formations. The tala is, if you can keep track, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Dakila kokila lila sunau pavana re Ruchiro madhya domaru Ruchiro madhya khedila mo mana dakila kokila lila kokila lila suna bonore rakila. These are the traditional kriyas. In the vinyasas that I told, everything is there. The raga aspect is there, the chanda aspect is there, the tada aspect is there. They would have to integrate it like this. They cannot sing it. In fact, in extremely high levels, they were never told to execute it like singular. It was always compound. Or further something technical. This is something more understandable. This is in the Raga Chakra Keli. This is a prabandha again written by Kavi Surya Baladevaratha. Chandatmaka vinyasa, which I was talking about, metrical elaboration or improvisation, which is something I think you will understand better because it is more to do with the way the words are treated. This particular way of breaking it down has been passed down by Guru Ananda Chachi of Gomusara area. Again, one of the contemporaries of Acharya Tarini Charanpatra. So this is the line of the song. The song will begin, the first line is the second line, part of the refrain. Sorry Ajo. This line is in the first stanza. Rothangi bhangi sinangi karo kole nirantaro. Sorry. Here it is returning again to sorry goli. They will not sing this just as it is. They will not sing Rajani Rathangi Bhangi Sina Angikara Kali. They will sing Rajani Rathangi Rajani Rathangi Rajani Rathangi Bhangi Sina Angikara Kale Nirantara Kale Nirantara. If you keep track of the lines below, that is where it is repeating. So Rajani Rathangi Rajani Rathangi Bhangi Sina Angikara Kale Angikara Kale Nirantara Kale Nirantara Sahi Sari Gali Laje Ajo. This is something that has been passed down. We are supposed to do this on the fly. This is called Visama Chandatmaka because it is not equal, it is unequal, it is crooked in that manner. So that is one of the aspects. We are still in Gita Avadhana. Here again, Tana. Tana is an action when we say a fast occurring phrase either in Sarigama or using the Sahitya or using Ak. That is called Tana. Again, the song that I was earlier telling, the fast moving phrases or the phrases that are sharply, precisely delineated like steps moving up or down. That is the part which is usually called Tana. There were a variety of Tanas earlier called, these are the various technical names that are used, Vartula, Nagaphasas, tied together like the snake's coil, which is why I was showing these Chitrakabya bandhas. These are also some of the traditional bandhas that have been passed down in the Tana lineage. So you were supposed to do a Gomutra Chandare Tana Karo. You are supposed to do a Nagaphasa Tana. And it is not easy to, if you take a critical song top of that rare raga and you are being asked to do this specific Tana here in a place where you can't break the samasa. It is difficult like anything. Nagaphasa, Meghonada, thundering clouds, Nandi Gosa, emulating the loud sound that the chariot wheel of Lord Jagannatha makes. Lata Jada, creeping, Jaladhi, wavy, like the Mahodati. Trigati, simultaneously using three types of gati. So there will be a movement in fives, there will be a movement in three, there will be a movement in one within. So Shumna, there were higher kinds of which was which was more based on producing the sound from a different area of voice production, which is extremely technical. So again, for example, again I'll demonstrate a few tanas that have been passed down, preferably the less complex ones. This is a very popular song. I've given the base lyrics so you can make out what is the thing that I am doing and what is already there. কি শোভাগো কুঞ্জে মদন মোহন চাহারে প্রাণমিতণি কি শোভাগো কুঞ্জে মদন মোহন সে মদন মোহন চাহারে প্রাণমিতণি কি শোভাগো কুঞ্জে মদন মোহন চাহারে প্রাণমিতণি This will be called something in Tisragati. Similarly, they would grow upon this, then they would begin what is called Tana in Sarigama and Ak. So Kishobhago Kunje Pa Magama Garega Ma Kishobha. This is a typical what is called Trikhandika, considering of Trikhandika Tana. A Tana consisting of three parts. So Pa Magama Garega Ma Kishobha. They would expect this level of finishing while also respecting. Within this, if you see, I cannot just rest on any note because I have to respect again Nyasa rule of raga is there. Pa ma ga ma ga re ga ma. These kinds of several tanas have been passed down. Several hundreds and hundreds of for every songs have been passed down. This is one of the most fundamental. You have to be able to execute this in this speed as well as much faster speeds. For example, there is a tana in what I was saying, Trigati, in 3 speeds. So there will be one phrase, it will appear, it will be repeated in a different speed, it will be further repeated in a different speed. For example, another tana that has been passed down, it is a ritual tana that has been passed down as not Trigati, but we used to say that Chakragati, we used to say this because it is repetition, but again it's circle. Or only Chakratana. কি শোভাগো কুঞ্জে মদন মোহন চাহারে প্রাণমিতণি This is a simple 4-beat meter. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Ta. Tina, Kartaka Nakati, that is all. So Kishobha Kunje Padha Pasa Sapa Sanida Pamagari Sani Magare Gama Padha Ma Pagare Gama Panida Pa Dhama Pama Dhapa Magare Sani Sagare Gama Pamagare Gama Pa Samagare gama pa ma ga re gama pa da pa sa sa ni sa ga re ni sa ga re ga ma pa ma ga re sa ni sa ni da pa re sa ni da pa ma ga ma pa pa da pa sa ni da pa ma ga re sa ni sa ma ga re ga ma pa da ma pa ga re ga ma pa ni da pa da pa ma ga re sa ga re ga ma pa ma ga re ga ma pa ni sa ma ga re ga ma pa ma ga re ga ma pa da pa sa ani sa ga re ni sa ga re ga ma ga re sa ni sa ga re sa ni da pa re sa ni da pa ma ga ma pa ni sa ga re sa ni da pa ma ga ma pa da pa ma ga re sa. It will come in phrases like this. This is ending with a mana. A mana again, a rhythmic exercise. Gama pa ni sa ga re sa ni da pa ma ga ma pa da pa ma ga re sa ni sa ga re ga ga ma pa da pa ni sa ga re sa ni da pa ma ga ma pa da pa ma ga re ni sa ga re ga ma pa da pa ni sa ga re sa ni da pa ma ga ma pa da pa ma ga re sa ni sa ga re ga ma pa da pa ma ga ma ki shobha go unje. I don't think I did it perfectly, but this is how it should land. When it lands, it is called the Chindano or the Leutani. So, Chindano, anybody who's familiar with Odia will find it extremely intuitive to understand. Chindigala. This is what they would do with respect to the Tana exercise. Again, another song where it is not that obvious to execute this Tana. That was in Ananda Bhairavi, this is in Ananda Kedara. Again, Kavi Surja. শ্রী গজেন্দ্র গতি মোতে প্রতিদিশে দিশিলারে হে সে গজেন্দ্র গতি. Why is this difficult to execute Tanmar variation? Because in the middle of the song it stops completely. Like Shri Gojendra Goti Mote. It's blank now. Pratidishe disilare se goje. Further the difficulty is say Gajendra Gati Mote. Gaje Je Guru Akshara. So I will have to sing Gajendra. I can't sing Gaje and leave it. But the composition is such that it breaks at Gaje. So I will have to sustain the note. So I can't sing Se Gajendra. This is wrong. I will have to sing Se Gajendra Gati Mo. প্রতিদিশে দিশিলারে হে সে গজেন্দ্র গতি মোতে এ জগতে ভাব যে নরহিলা মন চিতে জিণিকি চাহিলে সে তো জিণিকি চাহিলে সে তো তাহাপরি দিশিলারে হে শ্রী গজেন্দ্র গতি মোতে প্রতিদিশে দিশিলারে সে গজেন্দ্র হে গতি gama pa ma gare sare se go. This is what they would do. And now in a song like this, it gets all the more complex. Further cascading things like re vilasini re re vilasini re he he these kinds of cascading actions which is called jhara kama he single sweeping long phrase. Okay, now we are done with most of what is called Gita Avadhana. And Shastra Avadhana is of course obvious because I've been quoting things from the Shastra. The technicalities of that, the divisions, that is all more about the Shastra side. Tala more or less I've said. The Ganita parts of between these parts and within 7 matras, bringing 14 matras, subdividing to 2, subdividing to 3, all that. A very elemental demonstration would be Tripata. We count 1, 2, 3. Tripata is a tala. We count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7. 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, 4, 5, 5, 5. This is what all musicians are acquainted with. When you make it unequal, for example, 1 I count 3 times and 2 I do twice, something I do 5 times, that becomes Visama, complex or Jatila is what is called. Ukutana. This is called the way I have. When you recite the tala like this, it is called tala ukutana. Now we finally reach the bhagyakara thing where you are you are asked to impromptu compose something. There are several rules. I'm sure pretty much many of you are familiar with basics of Alankara, Shabda Alankara, Artha Alankara. So that is not something that I need to tell. That is obviously you can ask do an Alankara, you can give a phrase Padapurti, you can ask Datya Chutakshara, all that. But that is well known. And Chitrakabhi, of course, Gomutra and all that. Sarvatobhadra. But Samartha Prabandha is something that is directly at the intersection of music and literature. Because Prabandha again is song, classical song. Prabandha have been classified into various types of Sangita Shastras. Several rare prabandhas, several rare talas. You will be asked to write a prabandha in 108 matra talas, biggest tala. Difficult. Then there are types of prabandhas like the Swarartha Prabandha, where the swara, the name of the swara coincides with the letter in the text of the song. Here you have the notations of different songs. The first white block that you see is from a song called Radha Puri Radha Sina by Kavi Paramahansa Gopala Krishna. Here he has used the Swarartha prabandha, making it a Swarartha prabandha. This is in the raga Malava Gouda Jatitala. Radha Puri Radha Sina Re Sangini Radha Puri Radha Sina Stiri Matoroko Ochanti Jete Ko Sarve Pittala Se Sunare Sangini Radha Puri Radha Sina. What is happening is Radha Puri Radha Sina. The notation of this is Sadha Pama Gama Gapa Re Sa Sa Re Gama. So Radha is coinciding with Sadha. The dhas are coinciding. The dha swara has dha in the literature as well. So now whenever I do any kind of vinyasa, I will have to ensure that the dha falls on dha, no matter whatever I do. That is an added constraint. Now I have to keep dha on dha in the fourth matra of the 14-bit Jatita. It is all the more difficult. So Radha Puri, Radha Puri, Radha Puri, Radha Sina. I will always have to keep that dha constant. You will be asked as a Bhagyakara to compose a Prabandha entirely using dha. So you can use only the letters Sari, Gama, Padani. And suppose they will allow you some freedom, you can use Ra, you can use Ru to imply Re or the Rishabhaswara. Now you will have to write something like Sarasa rasa, mana, like that you will keep composing. Apparently, Tarini Charan Patra has written a prabandha like this, which is what we have heard. We have not found the entire text of that prabandha, unfortunately. And in a prabandha like this, you don't even need the notation because on the text itself you can sing if it is entirely scratched. Below you see another prabandha by Kavi Surya Baladev Ratha in the raga Todi Tripata. Mama Gare Sari Gama Dhani Sari Nishani Dabada Mama. Onaroto Soro Somonamo Dhono Kiso Onasi Orijone Panchilare Ona. The second line is Nisaro Mono Koro Visa Joyo Visaro Bodhono no Varuno Sodruse Disilare Onaro Nisaro in musical notation is Nisare. Therefore, he has used the same technique. Here you can see for Ni he has written Ni, for Sa he has written Sa, for Re or Ri he has written only Ra. Nisaro Mono Koro. That is how they would sing Jaya. This is a Swarartha Prabandha. In the Bhagyakara thing or the Rachana Avadhana, you would be asked to write a Swarartha Prabandha. You would also be asked to say another type of prabandha called the Suda Prabandha. You can see an early 16th century example of a Suda Prabandha written by Krishnadasa Badajana, who is the author of the Gita Prakasha treatise. If you just note the parts above, you can see Krishnadasa Badajana, Jannasi Ragena, Sarada Sangi Vrindavana Sundara. He writes that part. Then there is a, within the quotes you can see, Iti Aditala. So Suda is a prabandha which consists of the Navatalas of Odissi music in order. So Krishnadasa is used Iti Aditalaha. Below you can see Iti Jhampaka. Then you can see Iti Addatalaha. You can see Iti Triputaha, Iti Jati, Iti Mantha, Nissarika, Upadda, Paditala Iti Prasiddhi, Iti Rupaka, Ityalopo Tala, Iti Alapa Otalaha. I was singing Gadya. That part is sung without tala. Then you can see it is ending there. It's saying iti ekatali, with ekatali it is ending. It's a custom. Sarada Sangha ityatra mana, which is what it will end at the beginning. It starts with Sarada Sangi ityatra manam. It will return to Sarada Sangi. You could be asked to compose a Suda Prabandha like this. Those are the kinds of things that were asked in the Gita Avadhana. With short notes on the others I'll end. I have talked about the Gita Avadhana, I have talked about the Shastra, part of the Shastra Avadhana, I have talked about the Bhagyakara Rachana Avadhana, Tala Avadhana, Guru Ganapati Raut was talking about Tala Avadhana. He will place burning lamps on 7 of his angas and maintain talas using his 2 elbows, 2 hands, 2 of his knees, his head, the bobbing of the neck, without any of the flames being extinguished or the lamps toppling off. This is a practice called Antargati, in which you are supposed to keep 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I keep on my left hand. In the right hand, I will keep 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. With my head, I will keep 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 6, 5, 4, all kinds of weird things are kept together, which is called Antargati. Multiple things together. Then you have other things like I am keeping all this, somebody is patting behind me, and I will have to keep count of how many times he has patted me on his back, which is very much like a distraction thing that exists in Avadhana. Then you have a pile of stones to which somebody is throwing stones. You have to keep count how many stones have been thrown, how many stones were originally there, how much it has been removed, which is almost like a part of the, must have seen the Koshtaka keeping exercise. It's almost like that. You will have to keep track of all the operations that have been performed and the Ganita parts that have been happening. Distraction practices like this were also in vogue. Talavadhanis of this caliber existed till 1990s, 2000. In Corona, many of them passed away. In the Veena Avadhana, you would be asked about the intricacies of Shruti, Swara, Tala, Murchana, because the Veena is considered the demonstrating instrument of Shruti, which is an extremely precise frequency, which is considered almost impossible in careers of musicians over 50, 60, 70 years. It's considered unattainable. The Veena is supposed to be the expert in this. In the Veena Avadhana, you are supposed to demonstrate that. In the Mardala Avadhana or the Anadha, Vadyavadhana, Talavadhana, then you're also supposed to play on various instruments like the Mardala, Mrudanga, Muroja, Guinea, all that. You are supposed to play the Guinea in Ekahasta. We will tie around cymbals and we played with this. In the Mardala, you are supposed to execute several activities like Gadi, Khandi, Arasa, Bhauri Arasa, that. Again, the technical, quite allied to the that I was mentioning, but the repertoire doesn't have to think about the literature part. And they also have things like where the Vadyakshara has to ally. You must have seen traditional gurus at the Vadyas will say Kadachit Kalindi Tata Vipina Sangita Karabo, and they will play that on the mark. Things like that were also in the test part. I'm not going deeper, I'll end here. And I have already spoken about the Sushira thing and the others that were there. But this is more or less the Sangita Avadhana test as it was held. I hope something of it was understandable. Much of it might not have been understandable. But nonetheless, this is the level of precision and the level of that they demanded in the Sangita Avadhana exam. This is the last Avadhana we know conducted in 1930s, direct account of Tarini Charanapati. And again, I'll mention, I've derived this from Pandita Ramarao Patra, Guru Bhuvaneshwar Senapati, Guru Ladu Kishore Pani, and Guru Gopinath Swami. These are my, and Guru Ganapati Rauta also. These are my primary sources. With that, I'll end. And any questions if there are?
Thank you, Pratik. It was a wonderful, and your patience of conducting the session for 3 hours, 2.5 hours. It's amazing. And I feel, sir, Chairperson sir is here, others are here. So I feel that every university needs to produce one Pratik every year. Then the whole education system will change. So you have left me with a state of awe, looking at your age and the kind of mastery that you have. And then also, like, I have an expectation that in Odisha, we need to revive this Sangita Avadhana and various other forms of Avadhana and then make it really popular, which is lost. So I will keep coming back to you again and again to take forward the Avadhan revival in Odisha. Thank you.
Although we know the techniques, I don't think any of us possesses the expertise required to execute this impromptu.
Absolutely. I mean, it needs immense practice and sadhana, and then with your kind of effort, it is possible. I see a ray of hope. Thank you. So I hand over to Chairperson sir for his remark.
श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। अवधान संगमः इति विशिष्टः अयं कार्यक्रमः। इतः पूर्वम् एकः कार्यक्रमः अस्मिन् विषये समायोजितः आसीत्। तत्र अवधानकला कीदृशी भवति इति प्रस्तुतिः आसीत्। तदपि प्रायः सम्पदानन्दमिश्रमहाभागैः एव सोत्साहेन तत्र समायोजनं कृतमासीत्। तेषामेव सहयोगेन सः कार्यक्रमः अत्यन्तं विशिष्टरीत्या सम्पन्नः आसीत्। अधुना छात्राणां कृते अवधानकलायाः आत्मसात्करणं कथं भवति, अवधानकलायाः अभ्यासः कथं कर्तुं शक्यते इत्यस्मिन् विषये कार्यशाला इदानीम् आयोजिता विद्यते। प्रायः संगीतशास्त्रं नाम अवधानसंगमः, अन्यत्र अवधानसंगमः न भवति। यतोहि संगीतशास्त्रे विभिन्नविषयाः भवन्ति। इदानीं कश्चित् कविः अवधानं प्रदर्शनं करोति चेत् तत्र दत्तपदी इति वा भवतु, काव्ये एव प्रायः साहित्ये एव सः सञ्चरति, साहित्यं विना अन्यत्र कुत्रापि न सञ्चरति सः अवधानी। परन्तु संगीतावधानी तथा नास्ति। सः गणिते चलति, गणना तत्र भवति, तालमध्ये स्वरप्रक्रिया भवति, छन्दसः ज्ञानं भवति तत्र, एवं तालगतिः भवति, स्वर राग ताल इत्यादि भेदेन अनेके अंशाः तत्र संगताः भवन्ति। यथा इदानीं प्रतीकपट्टनायक महाभागेन उक्तं, तत्र 15 तत्र गमका विभागाः सन्ति। यद्यपि तेन यत् प्रतिपादितं महाशयेन तत् तस्य धारणमपि वयं कर्तुं न शक्नुमः। किं किं तेन प्रतिपादितं महाशयेन इति वयं धारणमपि कर्तुं न शक्नुमः। तथा संगीतविद्या नाम तत्र मूलरागाः केचन भवन्ति, जन्यरागाः केचन भवन्ति, जनिष्यमाणरागाः अपि भवन्ति। इतोपि केचन संगीतज्ञाः आगत्य नूतनरागानाम् अन्वेषणमपि कुर्युः। यथा तानसेन महाभागेन कृतं तद्वत् नूतनरागानामपि आविष्कारः कदाचित् शक्येत। तादृशः अवकाशः संगीतशास्त्रे विद्यते। यतोहि मूलमिदं शास्त्रं भवति। सामवेदे ये रागाः सन्ति, विशेषतः भवन्तः सर्वेपि जानन्ति, वेदे तत्र स्वरित स्वराः भवन्ति। उदात्तानुदात्त स्वरित भेदेन ये स्वराः भवन्ति तेषामेव अनेके विभागाः, सहस्रशः विभागाः भवितुम् अर्हन्ति। अतः संगीतस्य अत्यन्तं, संगीतशास्त्रम् अपि च मनोरञ्जकमपि भवति। स्वरः स्वयं रमते इति, स्वरः स्वयं रमते, स्वतः रञ्जयति च अन्यानपि। अतः स्वरस्य इदानीं भाषणेपि स्वरः भवति, न केवलं संगीते, भाषणेपि स्वरः भवति। यः स्वरप्रक्रियां ज्ञात्वा भाषणं करोति, कुत्र स्ट्रेस् देयं, कुत्र वा मृदु वक्तव्यं, कुत्र वा आहतिः भवेत्, यथा तैः उक्तम् आहतः इति, आहतिः कुत्र भवेत्, यत्र लीनं भवेत् इत्यादि विषयाः साधारणतया यदा वयं भाषणं कुर्मः तदापि ते अंशाः अत्यन्तम् उपयुक्ताः भवन्ति। अतः वाग्मिनः ते भवन्ति। यथा संगीतवाग्मिनः भवन्ति, संगीतनिपुणाः भवन्ति, तथा भाषणेपि वाग्मिनः भवन्ति। कथम् इत्युक्ते स्वरज्ञानेन, तालज्ञानेन, लयज्ञानेन, अर्थानुसारं शब्दानां प्रयोगः, अर्थं बुद्ध्वा शब्दरचना इत्येवं रीत्या संगीतशास्त्रं नाम न केवलं किमपि गानम् इत्यादिकं नास्ति। इदानीं सिनेमा मध्ये यत् शृण्वन्ति तत् नैव, परन्तु संगीतशास्त्रम् अत्यद्भुतम्। अस्माकं मनसि इदानीं थेरपी रूपेणापि संगीतशास्त्रम् उपयुज्यते। अस्माकं मनसि ये भावनाः सन्ति तासां भावनानाम् अभिव्यक्त्यर्थम् अथवा अस्माकं व्यक्तित्व विकसनार्थमपि सङ्गीतशास्त्रम् उपयुज्यते इति सङ्गीतशास्त्रस्य महत् स्थानम् अस्माकं भारतीयसङ्गीतशास्त्रस्य महत् स्थानम् अस्माकं जीवने भवति। यदि एतादृशाः प्रेरकाः भवन्ति, एतादृशाः अस्माकम् आदर्शभूताः भवन्ति, तर्हि अस्माकं जीवनं सुखमयं भवति, उन्नतस्तरं प्राप्नोति इति उक्त्वा मम वचनम् उपसंहरामि। विशेषतः समायोजकेभ्यः सर्वेभ्यः एतादृशकार्यक्रमाः पुनः पुनः भवेयुः। विशेषतः अधुनातन ये छात्राः सन्ति तेषाम् अत्यावश्यकं, तेषां भारतीयसंस्कृतेः जागरणं मनसि भवेत् यथा, तदर्थम् एतादृशकार्यक्रमाः अत्यन्तम् उपयुक्ताः भवन्ति। अस्माकं संयोजकाः ये सन्ति तान्, तथा अस्माकं सम्पदानन्दमिश्रमहाभागाः, तेषां सहकारिणः अन्ये बहवः अत्र सहयोगं कृतवन्तः। तेभ्यः सर्वेभ्यः अपि अहं धन्यवादान् वितनोमि।
अध्यक्षेभ्यः हार्दम् अभिनन्दनं धन्यवादं च वितनोमि. Pratik sir, it was a mesmerizing session. You have explained us the intricacies of music and the parampara that was followed in Odisha literally, and we were able to get so many comparisons and similarities between the normal music and what was followed in the state of Odisha, and the tradition that you come from is something amazing to know, sir. And it was really an enchanting journey for the past 2 hours. Thank you so much. We are all blessed to have you. Thank you, sir. अद्य मध्याह्ने 2:30 चित्रकलावधानं विद्यते. अस्माकं सत्यनारायणमहोदयः आगच्छन्ति, अतः कृपया सर्वेपि छात्राः 2:30 अत्र भवन्तु इति सूचना वर्तते. एतेन सभामिमां समापयामः. धन्यवादाः सर्वेभ्यः.